Doughboys and molasses, oh, doughboys and molasses, oh, the sweetest kiss I ever had. Doughboys and molasses, oh, da da dee dee da 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 dee dee da da dee dee da dee dee da dee dee da da.
Good evening and welcome to the launch of Doughboys and Molasses, traditional songs from the Gros Morne region. My name is Megan Forsyth, and I'm the Acting Director of the Research Centre for the Study of Music, Media and Place, or MMaP, at Memorial University in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Before we begin tonight's event, I'd like to provide a land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the territory in which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk, and the island of Newfoundland as the ancestral homelands of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk. We would also like to recognize the Inuit of Nunatsiavut and Nunatukavut and the Innu of Nitassinan and their ancestors as the original people of Labrador. We strive for respectful relationships with all the people of this province as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation and honor this beautiful land together. I'm thrilled to introduce the newest addition to MMaP's Back on Track audio publication series, and I'm doing so tonight with the help of a number of wonderful performers and collaborators. You're in for a real treat this evening with musical performances by Anita Best, Jim Payne, Fergus O'Byrne, Stephanie Payne, Matthew Byrne, and Daniel Payne. If you miss any part of tonight's event or wish to rewatch the performances, the recording will be available in the coming days on our YouTube channel. Doughboys and Molasses features 22 tracks recorded from local singers by folk song researchers Kenneth Peacock, Herbert Halpert, and John Widdowson between the late 1950s and 1970s, as well as 4 new performances commissioned for this project of songs collected in the community of Sally's Cove in the 1920s by American folk song collector Elizabeth Greenleaf. We're so pleased that Anita Best, Matthew Byrne, Jim Payne, and Daniel Payne were willing to reinterpret these songs for inclusion on the CD. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the first performance on tonight's program. The song Bar the Door O is a British ballad collected from Annie Walters of Rocky Harbour by Kenneth Peacock in 1961. Here is Stephanie Payne of Cow Head to sing it for us in front of the Lobster Cove Lighthouse in, of course, Gros Morne National Park.
This is a song that was sung by Mrs. Annie Walters, whose father was the lightkeeper here at Lobster Cove Head. And she sung it first for Elizabeth Greenleaf, and then she sung it again in the 1950s for Kenneth Peacock. And it's called Joan and John Blunt, or Get Up and Bar the Door. There was an old couple lived under an hill, Joan and John Blunt they were called. Oh, they brewed great ale all for to sell, and they brewed it wonderful well. Oh, John Blunt and his wife drank some of that ale till they could drink no more. Oh, they both went to bed with a drop in their head and forgot to bar the door. Oh, a bargain this old couple made, a bargain firm and sure. Oh, the very first one that should speak the first word should go down and bar the door. Oh, along came travellers 3, travelling in the night. Oh, no house, no shelter could they find, no fire nor candlelight. Oh, then straight to John Blunt's house they went and boldly opened the door. Oh, but not one word did the old couple say for fear they should bar the door. Oh, they ate of their victuals, they drank of their drinks till they could drink no more. Oh, but not one word did the old couple say for fear they should bar the door. Oh, then straight upstairs those travellers went and crossed the bedroom floor. Oh, but not one word did the old couple say for fear they should bar the door. Oh, they took the old woman out of her bed and kissed her on the floor. Oh, but not one word did the old couple say for fear they should bar the door. Oh, you've eat of me victuals, you drank of me drinks, till you could drink no more. Oh, John Blunt, she said, you spoke the first word, go down and bar the door. Oh, if you don't like what they did unto me, they kissed me on the floor. Oh, take this to be as a warning, see every night and bar your door. Oh.
I'd like to acknowledge the contributions of many people who brought this project to fruition, beginning with the CD's producer, Dr. Anna Guigné, who proposed this project to MMaP a couple of years ago and whose passion for traditional songs and the collectors who'd recorded and documented the rich culture of this province is, I think, unparalleled. Thank you, Anna. At MMaP, this project is indebted to the eagle eyes and dedicated work of co-producer and MMaP's project coordinator, Dr. Joy Fraser, as well as MMaP's director, Dr. Harris M. Berger. Thanks to MMaP's digital audio studio coordinator, Spencer Crew, for his restoration of some very old archival recordings and for live streaming this event. We are grateful to the collectors, composers, singers, and their families who generously provided permission for us to publish these songs, and for the kindness of all those who took our phone calls and emails, helped answer questions, offered their knowledge, helped locate singers or their relatives, or provided other kinds of assistance. Thank you. This project is a co-production of MMaP and the Canadian Museum of History, and our collaboration is facilitated by our mutual involvement in the Cultures of Sound network. Thank you to our colleagues at the museum, most especially Dr. Judith Clausen, Vincent Lafond, Aaron Wilson, and Jonathan Wise for their enthusiasm and support of this project. We also collaborated with Parks Canada to highlight the music of the spectacular Grossmoor National Park and the surrounding region. I wish to thank Dr. Carla Wheaton and Bertha Brophy for their assistance throughout the project, as well as Parks Canada for their generous funding of the project and this virtual launch. It has been a joy to learn about personal connections of many people to this tradition, and we're thrilled to have Angie Payne of Parks Canada bringing some greetings tonight on behalf of the park. Thank you to Memorial's School of Music staff, Lisa McDonald and Christine McDonald, as well as Dr. Ian Sutherland for their tireless assistance. We're also grateful to Pauline Cox and Nicole Penny at Memorial University of Newfoundland Folklore and Language Archive for their expertise and for providing us access to collections of recordings made by Dr. Herbert Halpert and Dr. John Widdowson. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next performance. In 1961, Kenneth Peacock recorded the song Waterloo from Charlotte Decker of Parsons Pond. It's an old ballad, and to our knowledge, it has only been collected in Newfoundland. Here's Fergus O'Byrne singing Waterloo.
Here's another song from the vast repertoire of Charlotte Decker from Parsons Pond. This one involving war, talking about Waterloo. It was on one Monday morning in the merry month of June. I went forth to convince my love all in her youth and bloom. But the press gang lay in ambush, and up to me they drew. They forced me from my true love's hand to fight in Waterloo. It happened on the 18th, the day that I was pressed. 'Twas on the 22nd I first put on my dress. My waistcoat of the scarlet, my hat and feather too. And the very next day we marched away to fight in Waterloo. It was early the next morning, we were signalled to the plain. Our captain cried, "My hero, boys, don't let your courage fail. I hope you are victorious and keep your colours true. And I hope to God you will gain the day you fight in Waterloo." It was 8 o'clock in the morning, the battle did commence. Every man with sword in hand did stand his own defence. The first shot came, my arm it swung, how loudly I did bawl. The next shot took my legs from me, it caused me for to fall. And when my limbs were gone from me, I lay down on the plain, all for to rest my weary bones in heavy racks of pain. When my comrades' work was done, 'twas up to me they flew. But I've often died and I wished I died that day in Waterloo. Up spoke our noble captain and he ordered me a cart to be drawn home by horses, the distance being so far. I heard you were so strong of limb when first you left your dear, But now you'll become a pensioner at £30 a year.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be here this evening. I'd like to tell you a little bit about how this particular CD, Doughboys and Molasses, came about. In 2017, I was in Grossmoor National Park, a place I dearly love, giving a presentation at the Lobster Cove Lighthouse. And it was about a lady by the name of Annie Walters, who you will hear on this CD. At the time, after the presentation, I approached Shirley Aylward, who is the interpretation coordinator in the area, and Shirley and I got talking, and I broached the idea of bringing together 3 collections of music that date back to the 1920s. So Shirley said, why not submit something? And so I did, and the rest is history. This CD is really very special. First of all, it brings together the music of communities that are within about a 90 to 95 kilometer radius from Rocky Harbour all the way up to Bellburns. The first material for the first time this particular tradition was documented started in the 1920s with a lady, an American by the name of Elizabeth Greenleaf, who happened to be in the Grossmoor area as a teacher for the Grenfell Mission. Greenleaf happened to be staying in Sally's Cove at the home of Daniel Endicott when she heard outside her window, she heard the young men in the community shuffling up, down in the community, singing the song Thomas and Nancy. Now, Greenleaf was quite interested in folk songs. She had learned about folk songs in Rhode Island and in her studies at Vassar College. So she realized that she was hearing something special, and she started to record the music that she was coming across in the community. In 1920, in 1921, and then again in 1929 on a very special folklore expedition. Over those years, she managed to document 57 songs from the Grossmoor region, later including that material in a landmark publication called Ballads and Sea Songs of Newfoundland. I say landmark because this was the very first publication to include songs, lyrics, music, and the notes about the songs. The area that she was documenting in Grossmoor really dates back to the early 1800s, when English settlers arrived on the coast from the west country of England to basically carry out the migratory fishery, fishing and trapping, and a little bit of logging. And over the course of several decades, they eventually settled the area. New residents came in, making their mark, and what we end up with today and what Greenleaf saw was a fascinating collection of old world ballads, songs from the lumbering tradition, songs that were local compositions, and much more. So her landmark study really made a huge impact on the broader scholarly community. I'd like to introduce to you Anita Best, who is going to perform for us Thomas and Nancy, that very first ballad that set Elizabeth Greenleaf on the road of documenting the folk song tradition of Grossmoor region.
Thomas and Nancy, my cousin Lillian's version. In Bristol there lived a fair damsel, and she being a beauty most bright, a sailor he loved her fond company far better than he loved his own life. And when her old father he heard it, unto his fair daughter did say, I'll send you far away to the country, and I'll send your fond love here to see. Oh Thomas, cried Nancy, we have vowed that we never would part. She fell on the beach broken hearted, while the tears from her blue eyes did start. Our ship reached the port, and returning, like a seabird she danced o'er the foam, and Thomas lay on his soft pillow, dreamt of Nancy and wished he was home. There was lightning and loud claps of thunder, and there was lightning flashed over the main. A rock split our good ship asunder, and the crew met a watery grave. To the beach, Nancy oft went visiting. She beheld a most terrible sight. 'Twas the corpse of her Thomas they carried to the place where she oft times had played. Next day there were two loyal lovyers, and they both were cut down in their bloom. It was sad that they loved one another. They were both buried into one tomb.
In 1958, Kenneth Peacock, a Canadian musician, decided to visit the area, and at the time he was collecting songs for the National Museum of Canada to fill out their collection of Canadian songs. Peacock was told to visit Annie Walters up in Rocky Harbour, and when he started to document Annie Walters, he actually had a tape recorder. This was something new. Although Greenleaf had collected songs by note, by taking things down by hand, Peacock was actually able to use the tape recorder, and over the course of 2 field seasons, using his tape recorder, Kenneth Peacock documented a massive collection of material from the Grossmourne region. In fact, he only visited 4 communities: Rocky Harbour, St. Paul's, Belburns, and Parsons Pond. And he tapped into what I like to call a singing network, a large network of people that happened to know each other's songs, that visited with one another regularly, and that kept songs from the old world, songs from the logging camps, songs that they made up themselves. While a lot of this material was eventually published in his landmark publication, Songs of the Newfoundland Outports, there is still material that remains in the archival collections at the Canadian Museum of History. Here now is Becky Bennett to sing a very special song called Dance at Daniels Harbour, which celebrates life along the Great Northern Peninsula. It talks about, the song is all about a dance in a community and people getting together just to have fun.
We weighed up our anchors and struck up a tune, bound to Daniels Harbour on the 7th of June. Our boat she worked well today in the barn. Our engine gave out and Fred broke the furler. My song, follow-lily-row-I-dee. We got to Daniels Harbour, it was just before dark. We all went on shore, boys, I can tell you we look smart. Went straight to John Sampson's guns right away, and then got the fiddler and Rufus to play. I sung follow-lily-row-I-dee.
Peacock's Songs of the Newfoundland Outports was released in 1965, just around the time that Memorial University was establishing the folklore department. And Drs. Herbert Halpert and John Widdowson, of course, would have been introduced to that publication. And in their quest to document Newfoundland material, they made a field expedition to the Grossmourne area and started to look at the people that Kenneth Peacock had visited, but also adding to Kenneth Peacock's examinations of the Grossmourne musical tradition. They certainly visited people like Charlotte Decker and Annie Walters, but then they expanded their explorations to places like Cow Head. The beauty of the collection that's at the Folklore Archive is that they added material that was missing from both Greenleaf and from Peacock. So we have from their explorations genealogical information, new data about the kinds of traditions that Peacock wouldn't have documented, such as folk tales and riddles and life along the coast. They also, in visiting the region, documented songs from singers in the Cow Head area, which Peacock had bypassed. One of those songs is well known in the Cow Head by many of the men in the community, and it's called the Crocodile Song. It's a tall tale about a crocodile that had a tail 500 miles long. So here's Nathan Payne to sing the Crocodile Song.
Come now, you landsmen, unto me, I'll tell you the truth, I'm bound. For what I've seen by going to sea, and the wonders that I found. Shipwreck I was on Avaroo, and land all on the shore, till I resolved to take a walk to the country to explore. Dee-fa-loo-ra-loo-ra-lido, right-dee-fa-loo-ri-dee, right-dee-fa-loo-ra-loo-ra-lido, whack-fa-la-loo-ri-dee.
A tradition is only kept alive if it serves a purpose, and over the years, as I've carried out my research in Grossmourne, I know the people of Grossmourne love to sing. Here now is a ballad that Elizabeth Greenleaf collected from Daniel Endicott, whom she stayed with in 1920, as performed by one of our contemporary singers, Matthew Byrne.
Come all ye young men all, let this delight you. Cheer up ye young men all, let nothing fright you. Never let your courage fail when you're brought to trial, nor let your fancy move at the first denial. I went to see my love, thinking to woo her. I sat down by her side, not to undo her. But whene'er I speaks one word, my tongue do quiver. I dare not speak my mind whilst I am with her. Madam, here's a diamond ring, if you will accept it. And here's a chain of gold, long time I've kept it. And when you're in repose, think on the giver. Madam, please remember me, undone forever. Bold Wolfe, he took his leave from his dear jewel, and sorely he did grieve. Love don't prove cruel. He says 'tis for a space that I am going to leave you. But love, remember me, and I shall not forget you. That brave and gallant youth have crossed the ocean to free America from her division, where he landed in Quebec with all his party, a city to attack, so brave and hearty. Bold Wolfe drew up his men in a line so pretty on the plains of Abraham before the city. On the plains before the town, where the French did meet him, and a double number round was all to beat him. When drawn into a line for death preparing, and in each other's space those armies staring, where cannons on both sides they did roar like thunder, and youth in all their prime they were torn asunder, where the drums did loudly beat and the colours flying, and purple gore does stream, and men lay dying. So mutely bold Wolfe from the mount came walking, and in each other's face two armies talking, till each one from his post did then retire. 'Twas then these numerous hosts began their fire, when shot from off his horse fell that brave hero. We shall lament the loss that day in sorrow. The French are seen to break, their ranks are flying. Bold Wolfe, he seemed awake as he lay there dying, and in lifting up his head, where the guns do rattle, he said unto his men, how goes the battle? His aide-de-camp replied, that is in our favour. Quebec in all their pride, there is none can save her. for 'tis falling in our hands, along with all her treasure. Oh, then replied bold Wolfe, I will die in pleasure.
I hope that you enjoy this CD. It's representative of a rich and diverse culture in the Grossmoor area. This is a really special culture that is carved out largely because of the landscape and the history of the settlers that are in that area. Anybody who's visited Grossmoor will know that music is very special to this region, and we are fortunate that we have such collections of music. For those people that live in the Grossmoor area, you will hear the voices of your ancestors, which is something that I feel very personal about. I hope the CD will make an impact. After all, what is music if it is not going to be used and passed on? And I like to think that Doughboys and Molasses will have such an impact. So my thanks to all of the individual organizations that collaborated with me on this project. My thanks to the community members who helped me fill in the blanks. And I hope you enjoy the CD. Many thanks.
Hello, my name is Dean Oliver, and I'm the Senior Director for Research and the Chief Curator at the Canadian Museum of History. I'm very pleased to introduce this fine project, a collaboration between the museum, with its long, proud history of supporting folk culture throughout Canada from coast to coast to coast, and the Centre for Music, Media and Place at Memorial University of Newfoundland. My colleagues here, including the professionals in our sound and documentary archives, our technical services and our communications teams, embraced this initiative as a project of undoubted national importance, befitting and advancing the museum's work on behalf of all Canadians. Its brilliant in-house leader, Dr. Judith Klassen, a proud graduate of Memorial, I should add, was, as always, tireless and enthusiastic, and she deserves special thanks for its successful conclusion. At any time, such a creative, important project will be deeply welcome, but it is perhaps especially beneficial in a period when physical access to archives and collections presents such a challenge. This work, a labor of love for all of the partners, including ourselves, has occurred under the umbrella of the Cultures of Sound Network, a multi-institutional, multinational venture to create, preserve, and share knowledge about music and culture. The network is more than just an exercise in archival best practices. Our joint work we see as a cultural window on the world, a way to know better, or perhaps to know differently, those people, places, and experiences we think we already understand, and also a way to appreciate, and perhaps for the first time, those we've never encountered or understood at all, and to find in them a common humanity, a common joy, and a common hope. Thank you for supporting us. The next song is called Bright Phoebe, performed by Jim Payne. It is one of 3 versions collected by Kenneth Peacock.
Bright Phoebe was my true love's name, the fairest girl that ever was seen, the fairest girl that ever was seen. If you traveled the wide world over, she and I, we did agree, married and shortly we would be. As soon as I returns from sea, we would settle the solemn bargain. But before I could return from sea, they had my lovely damsel slain from me. The pride and glory of my heart, now now in the cold grave lies mouldering. I am forsaken, I am forlorn. I wish to God I'd never been born. I'd died before the billows roar, since fortune has proved so cruel. Now I'll go down to yonder place, where no other man can behold my face. I'll spend the remainder of my days lamenting for bright Phoebe.
Hi, my name is Holly Everett. I'm Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Folklore here at Memorial. Our department was founded in 1968 by Dr. Herbert Halbert, who had first come to Memorial to join the English department in the 1960s. But he had been to Newfoundland before that. Between 1943 and 1946, Dr. Halbert served in the United States Army and visited Newfoundland during that time. On his off hours, he collected folk tales, and he spoke of it as some of the easiest and most lively collecting he had done in his career. And he had done a lot of recording up until that time. So when he joined Memorial University, he had many plans for fieldwork, which he carried out over the next few years, many trips across the island, many of these with Dr. John Widdison, with whom he collected folk songs in Cowhead. Dr. Halbert also spoke about Newfoundland's extraordinary, vigorous tradition of composing songs about local happenings, which was one of the really exciting things for folklorists to record and document here on the island and in Labrador, were these locally made songs. It's my pleasure now to introduce Danielle Payne from Cowhead, singing The Fisherman of Newfoundland, also known as Good Ship Jubilee, which he recorded for the CD.
This is another song collected by Elizabeth Bristol Greenleaf. This one is from Sally's Cove in 1920, and it was sung by Daniel Endicott. It's The Fisherman of Newfoundland, or The Good Ship Jubilee. Those thrilling tales we heard last week, it's in our memory yet. Two fine young men born in Newfoundland, snatched from the jaws of death. Two fine young men born in Torbay went adrift on an angry sea. Drove from the schooner Jubilee on the 18th of April. They lived to prosecute their voyage on Grand Bank's stormy shore. Where's many a hardy fisherman that never returns no more, tossed on those seas all those long days, and bitter was each night. No friend to speak a kindly word, nor sail to wave in sight. For 12 long days and 12 long nights these two poor fellows lay, to gaze on sky and water throughout each dreary day. For 12 long days and 12 long nights these two poor brothers lay, with sore stroke of hunger, no water, no, nor food, till at last a vessel hove in sight and saw the floating speck. The Jessie Maris was her name, colladen from Quebec. An hour or more, while winds did roar, the Jessie sailed around to see if any tidings of the dory could be found. The crew all standing in the bow, all anxious for to hail, when the captain spied her in the fog just aft our wind'ard rail. The jolly boat that hung astern of good old Oak did stand. The ropes were then put round her, and downward she was lowered. Two tough old seamen manned the oars, and at their work did go. The captain standing in the bow to take the boat in tow. He took those two poor boys on board, he nobly done his part. He watched them with a mother's care, he done a mother's part. He saved the lives of those poor boys with a kind and a tender heart. The first one spoke, it was Peter, the eldest of the two. He told the captain who they were, part of the Jubilee's crew, and how in April on the bank by chance got drift away, and lied exposed in an open boat for many a dreary day. Long live the Jessie's gallant crew, likewise her captain bold. His name shall be recorded in letters of bright gold. May God now send them happiness in every port they lay, and the plucky boys that manned the oars were the Flemings of Torbay.
Hi, Angie Payne here, coming to you from Lapsco Lighthouse. Parks Canada is a proud partner in the production and release of the album Doughboys and Molasses, and in the ongoing support of the preservation of folklore. In modern times, our way of preserving important information is through writing and recordings, and through the commemoration of places like Parks Canada's Grossmoor National Park and this lighthouse. But in Newfoundland, not so long ago, our way of preserving important information was the oral tradition. Newfoundland was extraordinarily lucky because in the early to mid 20th century, 3 outstanding collections of folk songs were made. The pioneer of these collections was Elizabeth Greenleaf. She actually lived with my family in Sally's Cove, and through them she made connections with many other families who supplied hundreds of ballads and folk songs. One of these people was Annie Walters. Annie was the daughter of William Young, the lightkeeper of Lapsco Lighthouse. She, her family, and their music are all commemorated here, as well as many other families of the area. The lighthouse is an exhibit and a tribute to the people and traditions of the communities of Grossmoor National Park. Many of the descendants of the people who contributed these collections actually still make their life here, Many are even unaware that their ancestors made such an important contribution to not only the preservation of music, but to a time, a world, and a spirit of living that might have been forgotten were it not for these collectors. For these reasons, Parks Canada is honoured to support the production of this album, a legacy to the communities that will preserve for all time a part of our musical traditions. One of the songs that was collected locally was The Wreck of the Steamship Effie. Here now is Jim Payne to sing it for us.
So we're here just off Martin's Point, just north of Sally's Cove in Grossmoor National Park. And strewn along the beach beside me here, you can see the wreckage from the steamship Effie, which went aground on the 10th of December 1919. You can't really see it here because the tide's in today, but there's a series of parallel reefs here. And when the ship got in trouble during a storm, it looked like she was about to founder on the rocks until a couple of the members of the crew, namely Walter Young, the purser, and John Gullidge, the first mate, figured they knew the coast well enough that they could guide the ship in between the reefs coming ashore here. And that's what they did. It's one of those rare things. It's a shipwreck song with a happy ending because everybody was saved. So just a few weeks later, at Christmas time in 1919, there was a song composed about the wreck of the steamship Effie, composed by Barney Ison, Maud Sampson, and the fiddler Rufus Ginchard, with whom I knocked around a good many years along this coast and stood here on this point while he described the scene to me. And he, in fact, worked on the Effie, quit his job on the Effie 5 days before she went aground because he got a job ashore doing carpentry work in Port Saunders. But this is the wreck of the steamship Effie. Come all you true countrymen and listen unto me. A story I'll tell you of the SS Effie. She being the steamship employed on our shore to carry freight, mail and passengers down on the Labrador. On the 10th of December, as you all well may know, in the year 1919 on her last trip did go, where she leave Daniels Harbour about 4 p.m. with a strong breeze from the south'ard for Cowhead did steam. The glass indicated a wild raging storm, and about 9 o'clock the storm it came on, with the ship's husband on board, the crew had no fear. Captain English gave orders for Bombay to steer. At first to the storm the brave ship gave no heed, till at length it was found she was fast losing speed, and the great waves all round her like mountains did rise, and the crew all stood staring with fear in their eyes. The orders went round to preserve for their life, for the ship she is doomed and its perish we might, but still there is hope, there's one brave man on board, who says he can guide her safe onto the shore. Walter Young, been our purser, as you may understand, volunteered for to guide her safe onto the land. John Gullidge, our first mate, he stood to the wheel. Captain English gave orders, all worked with a will. Up on Martin's Point, about 1 o'clock, through bravery and courage she escaped every rock, and the people on shore saw the ship in distress, all rushed to the spot for to help do their best. And then we were landed in a rude boatswain's chair, taken in by the people and treated with care, and we stayed on the point till the storm it was o'er, and the brave little Effie lay standing on shore. Oh, what of the fright, the exhaustion and cold, the depth of my story will never be told. So all you young fellows get shipwrecked at sea, you thinks on the fate of the SS Effie.
Thank you for joining us tonight, and to Anita, Jim, Stephanie, Daniel, Fergus, and Matthew for their wonderful performances. The CD is available to order online through our distributor Sing Song Inc., in both hard copy and digital formats through the website noted on the screen. You can find more information about the entire Back on Track series on the MMaP website. As I mentioned earlier, if you missed any part of tonight's event, you can find it in the coming days on MMaP's YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in to celebrate with us tonight. Good night.
Mother won't let me marry, my mother won't let me do, my mother won't let me marry until I get 22. Well, first she gave me a ginger snap, and then she gave me a pie, and then she gave me a candlestick to marry him on the sly. Yeah. Mother won't let me marry, my mother won't let me do, my mother won't let me marry until I get 22. Well, first she gave me a ginger snap, and then she gave me a pie, and then she gave me a candlestick to marry him on the sly. Yeah. Mother won't let me marry, my mother won't let me do, my mother won't let me marry until I get 22. Well, first she gave me a ginger snap, and then she gave me a pie, and then she gave me a candlestick to marry him on the sly.